the second controller using either a second TCP/IP connect or, in this case, an indirect address. Or we can use socket 1 for one communication and socket 2 for another communication. If we had over 4, if we had 5 or 6 or 7, we wouldn't have the option to keep all communications dedicated per socket, so we'd need to figure out some configuration that we can close and open sockets with different IP addresses. Okay, so let's bring back the controller view again, and let's just see what the controller is doing. Okay, so let's hit connect again. Notice we're not connected. Let's perform a read, and let me put something in my slave. I'm going to put 44 in the slave. I'm going to press the read button, and we've read MI17 from our slave. Notice we have one total transmit and one receive. This is because TCP sends the message and it sends back a confirmation that it got there. Okay, let's press the write button. We can't really see that we're writing to the slave, but we are indeed writing to it. I can hit another value into the slave, 55, and hit read. Good. Okay, so are there any questions on what we just did, the connecting and disconnecting? Okay. No. Okay, so these are the examples I wanted to go over. We have about 5 minutes left. If anyone wants to do any questions. Okay, how are we showing the view of the 570? In VisiLogic, when you use the online test mode, again, you can click here, connection online test, or you can press the F9 key. We're selecting the remote access function. If you hover your mouse over this box that comes up, you'll see that the little controller view icon brings up the screen of the controller. This is nice when you're working in when you're working from a remote location, because you can bring up the controller right in front of you. Any other general questions of Ethernet? Okay, so there's a question pertaining to the socket mismatch between the master and the slave. The master is using socket 3, and the slave is using socket 2. The specific socket we're using doesn't matter. The thing that matters is the port we have associated with it. So the master is trying to, in this case, leave this, connect on port 502. The slave needs to be set up to listen on port 502. The specific socket we're using only pertains to this controller. We can set up the sockets. We can use socket 1 on one and socket 2 on another. It doesn't matter as long as we have the port associated with it correct. Again, the socket specifically is the way we're going to, well, the socket is you can think of it as its own connection. And we need to configure each of these to operate correctly. Okay. Another question is it possible to keep a second slave connected on a different socket continuously? You can do this. It's a good idea sometimes to connect, send their information, and disconnect. For one, it doesn't keep communication running all the time. The second is that if we are going to perform a connection right before we send our information, we will know if we have a problem connecting or not. As long as we build in something to our application that'll let us know if we're not connected, then leaving it connected all the time won't be a problem, especially if we need to read from it continuously. Okay, there's a question about the web server. Can you have multiple sockets set to HTML so we can have more than one person looking at the web page at the same time? No, you can't. You need to. You configure only one socket to the web server. This does mean that only one person can be connected at a time. But if you think about what you're doing when you're on a website, you load a website in your browser, and your browser holds all the information that was transferred and displays it as a web page. You don't need to continuously load information. So in this case, when we change between pages, we'll need to be connected. When we're not changing between pages and we're not updating information, we won't actually be connected to the controller. Okay, do we have any other questions? Okay. So there's a question, I need to specify one socket for every OPLC. Again, when you are making a TCP/IP connection, you need to specify the IP address you want to connect to. So you will need one socket per one connection, and we have 4 sockets available. So if we want to connect to more than 4 devices, first off, we can't do it at the same time, but we can interchange the IP address that our TCP/IP connect block is using. So, I'm sorry, let me go back to the master. The connect block here. Again, if I set this as an address of MI, and we can say, just say MI30, because I believe it's out of the range. MI30 will hold the first octet, 31, 32, and 33 will hold the other octets of the IP. Okay, and there's one more statement which is very important. Let me go back to our example that we have here. So our connect. Let me change my communication back over to serial and do a quick test. We are working. I'm going to download this one more time. Notice that the note we got here, says in order to activate the link lost auto recovery SB168 must be set. Okay, so we didn't do this. Let's go to our system bit 168, and let's give it a startup value. What this means is, if we have system bit 168 set, we lose. Sorry, if we lose communication, or in this case the TCP/IP connection, it will try and recover it if it can. Otherwise, if we lose it, it will just it will be lost, and we'll have to manually reconnect. Or when I say manually, I mean determined by logic. Are these examples in the help file in VisiLogic? Yes, there are Modbus IP examples in the help file. I'm sorry, in the examples folder. We just go to help and examples. Select version 861, project examples, communications, Ethernet, and Ethernet Modbus IP. Okay, are there any other questions? No. Okay, I would like to thank everyone for coming, or connecting, I guess I can say. I apologize for the technical difficulties. Again, this is our second webinar. We're still trying to get a couple technical things worked out, like the microphone. We will be creating some location on our website where we will be hosting the information that we go over and the recordings of the webinars. And we'll be continuing in January with a new webinar series we have that we're trying to plan out currently. So we'll have one more next week before the holidays. We'll be going over timers. Jason will be giving it. And if you have any suggestions or material you'd like to cover, please send us an email to support@unitronics.com and just title it Webinar Suggestions, because we would really enjoy getting information and feedback as far as what has gone well or what should be changed and what information you'd like to be covered. Again, thank you, and of course, have a good day. And if you do have any other questions, of course, please send them to support@unitronics.